Ha!
Well, this was kind of a letdown. I think the main problem with G.I. Joe Retaliation is that the original G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra is a thing that existed. Now, granted, I'm one of the only people I know who thinks the first live-action movie was actually pretty good. Yeah, it was a ridiculous ball of hyperactive childish nonsense, but from where I sit, that's what made it, in tone if not in design, a faithful adaptation of a cartoon about a top-secret yet massive, and somehow very public military outfit that occasionally conscripts ninjas, professional wrestlers, football players, and video game characters.
It's the most lethal G.I. Joe team yet! Capcom Street Fighter 2!
No way!
Wait! There's Guile, Ryu, Zangief, Blanca, and Dalsim!
What's a Dawson? Oh!
Some with real ninja moves!
Hey!
My troopers got Street Fighters too!
Vega, Sagat, Balrog!
And me, El Bison!
They look unbeatable!
So, yeah, it was a good movie, but not a great one, and while liking it, I have to concede it was kind of a mess, and while it didn't make a huge difference, it was kind of disappointing that the filmmakers scrapped and reworked a lot of the iconic characters' original designs and personalities, since, you know, those were always the most memorable things about them. Retaliation wants to very much correct that more fan service-oriented criticism of the series, presenting a version of the characters in their world that looks more directly lifted from the animated series and the comics, but it also wants to do so while spending substantially less money and operating on a much smaller scale than the famously overstuffed original, which in and of itself would be fine, except it also wants to maintain strong ties to the continuity of the original since, well, continuity in blockbusters is important now. Unfortunately, this becomes a problem when the realities of budget and casting intrude on that goal. Retaliation asks its audience to remain very invested in certain plot points from the first film, but other things it seems to just want us to forget or put out of our minds. For example, the film's main plot of the US government being taken over from within and turning against the Joes is built entirely on the Zartan impersonating the president cliffhanger from the end of the first one. But when said evil fake president orders an airstrike that appears to kill maybe 20 or 30 people tops, and we're told that this means G.I. Joe has been completely destroyed, we're, I guess, supposed to forget that in one movie earlier, G.I. Joe had like 1,000 guys operating out of an underground city so huge they had their own indoor ocean for submarine drills. But maybe internal consistent logic is too much to ask from this sort of thing. Anyway, that is the starting point of the film. Cobra, now secretly in control of the United States government, frames G.I. Joe for treason and wipes out the entire team except for Flint, Snake Eyes, Lady J, and the Scorpion King, as part of a larger plan being orchestrated by the newly freed Cobra Commander with the assistance of Storm Shadow and his ninja clan. Snake Eyes is dispatched to recruit Blind Master and Jinx to help handle the ninja side of the problem, while Jay, Flint, and the Tooth Fairy seek aid from G.I. Joe's founder, General Cameo. Oh, and Firefly is in there too, because Cobra needed one more guy. If all that sounds like basically a handful of dudes fighting another handful of dudes, it basically is. Cobra seems to have enough guys around to provide the occasional cannon fodder, but the whole thing is exceptionally small scale except for the big world-ending explosion stuff that happens in big CGI set pieces that don't directly involve any of the main characters. Even the much-touted mountain battle with the ninjas is very obviously a work of green screen effects and backlots. Cheap and small scale doesn't necessarily mean bad, of course, it's just weirdly dissonant when we're told that the fate of the world is being decided and that these events are leading off from the much bigger events we keep being reminded happened in the first one, which makes it not difficult to notice that the first film ended with a massive underwater battle in and around and above a giant supervillain headquarters involving whole armies, while The Seagull ends with a shootout on a beach involving a couple of tanks and a hovercraft. Yeah, that's it. The problem might be that the movie just isn't goofy enough, given its preposterous plot and roster of funny-named characters. You know what might actually have helped? Maybe if, like, The Rock, instead of playing Roadblock, was actually just playing The Rock, like if he joined G.I. Joe. I mean, like I said, Sergeant Slaughter joined G.I. Joe and he was just himself, so did Refrigerator Perry and he was a football player. Hell, the Street Fighters even joined.
It's not as tough as Championship Edition Guile going boom in his Sonic Boom tank, or the Beast Blaster. It comes with Championship Edition Blanca and Chun-Li and fires double trouble missiles.
Street Fighter 2!
So, like, if part of the plot was just, hey, The Rock, Uncle Sam wants you to join G.I. Joe, I don't know, maybe that might have been a better movie, I guess. As it stands, none of this makes G.I. Joe Retaliation a bad movie, it's just kind of flimsy and cheap. It looks and feels more like the more CGI-heavy version of a low-end G.I. Joe movie Cannon Films or Golden Globus might have made in the mid-80s, and if it had been, it might have been a pretty big deal at the time, and maybe even fondly remembered today. But as a sequel in 2013, it just ends up feeling like a weird what the hell is this entry in the franchise. See you next time!